as an artist, obviously creativity is central to the work that you do. But
Yes.
then again, some people say, well, not every artist is creative, so for you, what does creativity mean? And do you believe that every artist is creative, or do you believe that creativity is more about simply art?
I think creativity, I think every artist, to actually be an art, to actually make some art, yes, that is creative in itself, because every painting that you do is unique. I mean, I've been to maybe like a workshop session in the past, and it might be that you've got 20 people in the room and we may be painting the same topic, but you'll have 20 individual paintings that come from that topic. So they will all be of the same thing, but people's the way that they've applied the paint or the materials, how they've drawn or painted it, it will all be unique. So I think that's one of the interesting things. If you're simply copying somebody else, then I would say that in itself there's an element of creativity there, but not creativity in its own sense of looking, say, at some sort of reference material or image that you've got in your head and then translating that into an art form. But it's not just artists that are creative, of course.
Of course, yeah. Entrepreneurs, well, I mean, there are different schools of thought around that. Some people
Yes.
believe that an entrepreneur obviously is creative because they're creating something from something that didn't exist, a business that didn't exist previously. And others say, well, every one of us, even if we're doing a flower arrangement, we're being creative because we're adding value, we're creating beauty,
Yes.
so, but then there is the emergent approach to creativity where you're not copying something, you are allowing a vision or
Yes.
something to emerge. So how is that different? And how do you
How is
what's
that
your approach?
different?
Yeah.
Well, I sometimes I can just sit down at in my art room and I can just paint something. It'll be something that I just think, oh, I'm just going to do something, and I'll just apply paint or whatever I'm using to the paper, and I will then see where those marks have gone and then take it somewhere from that. So that's one way that I sort of paint, very much sort of spur of the moment, and just completely just sort of seeing in effect where the marks, because all art is mark making in some form or other. And then there are other things where I will have sat and I'll have thought of something that I'm going to paint, a particular topic, theme, a particular place, and I will spend quite a lot of time thinking about it. So I almost like daydream about it. So I'll be thinking of that idea, how it looks in my mind's eye, how I envisage it coming out, and then I will then sit down and create that painting. And I think those processes are slightly different in how they come about, although the end results will be where you've gone with it, because even if I have thought of something, when it actually gets down to putting it on the paper or the canvas, still you will find yourself that you'll just be in the present moment and say, all right, this now needs to be like this.
And I suppose once you've created something, the presence of what you've created leads to an emergence of things that are not foreseen.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, because you'll have something in your mind's eye and something completely different will come out, and that's one of the joys of being an artist, and like anything where you are being present and being in the moment. Excuse me, it's very hot in my study. I thought it'd be cooler up here. Apologies. Is where you'll be very much in the moment, and you're completely lost in that moment. Somebody can come in the room and stand behind you or beside you, and you won't even notice that they're there. Could be a knock on the door, the phone ringing. You won't actually be there because you're so present in what you're doing at that moment, so much almost like in the flow of where that idea is taking you, and then what you end up is the piece you've ended up with. You know, it's very much emerged from where your initial thought was.
It's almost like being in a different dimension, isn't it? Like we kind of, it's almost as if we're in a space which is not physically present when we are in that state of flow, as you say.
Yes, it's like you can get lost in a book, can't you? You can get so wrapped up in reading a book that anything can go on sort of around you. And if we think about our general day-to-day lives, there's so much of it that we actually live on autopilot. We just automatically do things. I mean, you know, take driving, for instance. There's so many people would say to you that they've not realised how they've got to their destination. They've observed all the traffic laws and done everything like that. But actually, because the process of driving the car, say, is so ingrained into them, is that you don't say, well, how many times did I change gear and how many times did I turn left or right? You wouldn't be able to describe that because you know that route and you've gone on autopilot. Whereas being creative and being an artist, doing anything like that, or you know, or any other forms of creativity, allow you to be so present in the that time almost seems to stop for you. You don't actually realise how much time that you've spent doing something because you've been lost in that process. And so you know, it's doing something creative is one of the few times in your life when you are actually fully present in your own inner world and body and functioning, I think.
Right. And sometimes when people, well, this is how it appears to me, is that they have an outcome in mind. They want to create something like, let's say, write a book as their creative expression. And the outcome that they have in mind is that, you know, the book's going to make X number of sales, and then they get really disappointed when that doesn't happen. And instead of that, you know, maybe lots of opportunities have emerged, but they don't notice the emergence of lots of different things because they're so focused on the outcome rather than the emergence of new, you know, the impact of the what's actually emerged.
But I think there you're talking about two different things. There's the one activity of actually creating something, whether it be a piece of art, a painting, a book, as you say, or having the idea for being an entrepreneur, for example, and that is a creative process. So there's that one aspect. And then there's the aspect of then how do you actually let people know that that exists? And so, you know, so they're two completely different functions. And I would say that one would be a left brain activity and one would be a right brain activity, because in the actual promoting of an idea, of actually getting it out there, that, you know, the finished product, you know, or the new business, whatever it might be, you have to let people know about it. Well, that then takes in a lot of planning, motivation, marketing, you know, all those other attributes to get there. So they're two, you know, so somebody that could be disappointed about a book, you know, book sales, it's not necessarily that the book that they have written wouldn't appeal to people, but what channels have they done to get it to market? How much effort have they put in? You know, have they made the right connections to get it to market, or are they expecting to be found? You know, are they the secret person at home that's worked and created this magnificent thing, and it is forever a hidden secret because they didn't know how to put it out there?
That's right. It's about the, you know, it's not simply about the presence of the product.
No.
The presence needs to be much broader than that.
Yes.
The person needs to make it visible rather than simply existing.
And I do think artists have the process itself requires a lot of effort and hard work, but in some respects, compared to say even 20 years ago, I think artists have an easier access to actually those channels of actually making their art visible, because we have the internet, we have social media. Now that didn't exist to artists and creatives in the past, and so you've actually got there sort of platforms at your fingertips, that yes, you have to put a lot of time and effort to doing it, but if you want your art to be seen, then yes, you have to apply that. But nowadays artists don't need to go to galleries, they don't need to be picked up by certain people, they don't have to be one of the clique, the chosen few, because that's all the should we say, the art players, the big players in the world, they'll only look at the people that they've in. And so a lot of artists go under the radar because they haven't got access to that. But at the end of the day, would you want to give 30, 40, 50% of your sales away to a buyer that you never get to see, because the galleries have retained and exhibition places have retained control of that? Much better to have it in your own remit, and then you survive or succeed by your own efforts, which is, for a lot of people, having that control is a challenge, but for a lot of it, that having that control gives you the ability to, or the option, to actually make a go of it.
I suppose the internet has created a greater sense of equality. There's more egalitarianism in terms of that. You know, we don't have to be part of that elite club, as it were, in order to be visible.
Absolutely, and the other thing about it, it is egalitarian because other artists are not my competition. I have no competition because I'm producing the artwork that I'm producing, and the people that want to buy it, if I put it out there, will find it. So I'm not in competition with other artists, because if you look at the number of users of the internet and then sort of channel that down to how many that might be looking for a piece of artwork, the numbers out there, I can only paint so many paintings, you know, in a year, say. So that there's plenty, you know, if you put the effort in, then there's plenty of buyers out there, as long as you do the work to find them. So I don't see other artists as my competition, which I think is a really healthy way to look at things. You know, they're my tribe in effect, because we're all being creative and have got a lot of, you know, we love colour, we love expressing ourselves, you know, so we've got a lot in common, but they're certainly not my competition. And some people might find that an interesting concept to have.
And very often artists tend to be wrapped up, engrossed in their own work, and you know, and in a sense, I think that, I mean, when I've written books, I've become isolated, I've incubated, I haven't made time to invest in my relationships because I needed to have that space, that alone time, in order to focus. And you know, when we don't balance that with investing in relationships, very often artists are not visible, they're not found, because they don't have very strong relationships with others, because they isolate themselves. And so in a way, the internet, if we're able to present our work on the internet without having to build relationships with an agent or somebody else who's going to necessarily promote our work for us, do you think that that has overcome the need for relationships, or do you believe that nevertheless we still have to build relationships even if we're marketing on the internet?
Relationships are key to every aspect of life, and that includes artists. You know, artists who the ones that are cutting themselves off from everybody are people that would probably do that in whatever realm of life they were operating in, because that would just be maybe part of their character and personality. Some might be doing it just because they haven't learned the skills to get out there. But I think it's very important for, as an artist, for me to have relationships with other people, and also outside of art. Yes, one of the things about being an artist is that, yes, I will spend much time by myself in my creative process. So I set up my schedule so that I do go out regularly during the week, to, you know, okay, ignoring, you know, the current situation that we've been facing this year, but I have sort of set schedule where I will go and meet up with different people, but there will be different people in there, those social gatherings, you know, so I have a planned thing. So on a Wednesday afternoon, for example, I would go to a local coffee shop in my town and actually sort of meet up with different people there. And I think having that sort of, you know, it keeps you connected to the outside, the wider world, and the people that I meet with are from completely different backgrounds. So you're still getting, some of them are entrepreneurs. Say if I go to a business network meeting, and I go to those not particularly to promote my work, because maybe that's not the avenue to do that, but just to connect with people that are in my business, because at the end of the day they're also trying to promote their service and goods, so we can cross fertilize off each other as to what different things work.
And I suppose through your networks that leads to emergence of other things, that synergies, synchronicities.
Absolutely, yes. There's different opportunities that come up. For example, I've just been contacted by somebody that I sat next to at a lunch last year, and I'd gone along to this event, and there was 10 people sat at a table. It had been almost like a social event for this particular network, and I hadn't been, we're connected on LinkedIn, we hadn't seen each other since, just because our paths have not crossed, and they contacted me a couple of weeks with an opportunity to do some creativity sessions for an online conference in October, and I've got that gig. So, you know, who would have known that that would have come out from, and we found out what each other did, but that was about 2 minutes of the conversation. Then we were just talking, just social conversation around the table, and getting more to know people. So yes, you don't know what making connections, what that brings to you. And I think it's important, you know, the great thing about being an artist, I also have flexibility of schedule. I'm not 9 till 5. Obviously I want to paint in daylight hours, but you know, it's light early in the morning, so it gives me time to actually go out and do some other times, which to do things which are not in effect connected to my art, but connect me to other people.
Right, and it's those random connections that very often lead to emergence of opportunities that were unforeseen, unplanned. You know,
Yes.
you didn't plan that, you didn't kind of keep on contacting this person in the hope that they would offer this gig to you. It just happened, even
Yeah,
though.
absolutely. It's completely random, because, you know, I knew what she did. She knew what I did. That there wasn't a situation where you'd sit down and thinking, oh, at this moment, there's particular synergy, but we'd hit it off. We'd enjoyed each other's company. I've looked at things that they've done. So yes, I might have gone and lurked on their post and done the odd comment, but only just as I might come and look at how I'd found how we've connected, and that's just through chance, in effect, online conversations, you know, and then here you are, we're having an interview. So it is those, you know, the synchronicity of just different things and little connections making, and then somebody will think, oh yes, I just need to speak to somebody like this, or somebody knows that. But I've been a natural connector myself through my life anyway. I like sort of, you know, if I see things or have ideas, I think I've always been I had a corporate background, but I think even in that I was creative in the way that I applied that. And then yes, I would think about ways of bringing people together, because I could just sort of say, well, have you thought about this, that, or the other? And they, oh right, yes, and just let them go and have fun seeing them do whatever they did. And I think that's it, and that's about getting to know people, or things just spring to mind, and actually just being willing to share that and do that have you thought of moment for somebody, and then let them go off and pick the ball up if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and it's this kind of connecting the dots, isn't it? You know, like
Yes.
being able to see patterns, and I suppose networking in itself can be a very creative activity in itself, because we're building relationships that lead to emergence of new opportunities, new
Yes.
spaces, new connections.
I think so. Done in the right way. Yes, you can go and do this. Some of the networking that maybe has happened in the past, where people have gone around just like thrusting business cards at each other, and then looking almost over your shoulder, come to speak to you, and oh gosh, you don't tick their boxes, so they walked, they've almost like bypassed you to the next person.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there, and that's just people, whichever pattern that they're on at the moment is they're finding their feet, really. Because the thing to do it for that, yes, you need to know somebody's name and what they do, but it's more about, you see, if I want to recommend somebody to me, it won't just be who they are and what qualifications they've got and everything. If I'm going to recommend somebody, I might sort of may say, no, for example, say 2 or 3 printers, because obviously I use printing myself sometimes. Well, I know 2 or 3 printers, but somebody might ask me of the printer, and I'll think, oh, I think they'd really get on with such and such, because I know that person's personality, I know this person's personality, and I'm thinking, actually, to me, that looks a good fit. So at that particular occasion, I might recommend person B. Yeah. Another occasion, I might mention, somebody else, just because I might just see from what I know of the people and specifically what they're looking for. So I think it's actually that curiosity about people. I think that's what makes sort of networking sort of good, is that you can remember. I'm an avid note taker, so if somebody has actually asked for something specific at a network, and I think, that might be something I can help with, I'll make a note of it, because you might not be able to help that instance, but a little bit down the line you might think, yeah, there you go. And you just say, right, here's somebody you should speak to.
I think one of the most important things about networking is being present with the other person. And that example you gave earlier over lunch, obviously you were present with this person, that they remembered you all this, many months later. Whereas we've all met those people at networking events where they hand you a business card and they're looking over your shoulder for the next person to speak to. They're not present. So
No.
we don't remember them, we don't recommend them, because they never invested their time to be present with us.
Yeah, and I think for those people that you find that are like that, that might just be them in that moment, in that meeting, and just at some part of the cycle, they might be in that manner, sort of like that mode almost, for a set of reasons, which if you meet them again, they're not in that mode, they're in a more present mode. So if somebody has done that to me at a meeting, they'd have to do it regularly as a repeated pattern for me to sort of show no interest in them, if you like, because we can all be sort of like on our tram lines at something where we've maybe gone to some event or some place where we're thinking, right, I really need to get this done. Yeah, there is really that one person that I need to meet this time, and it's really nice to have met you briefly, but I really need to go and talk to Fred. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't, Fred will have gone and I've missed that opportunity. So there can be a raft of reasons. I suppose I always sort of quite sort of people watching, and so you can see, and if it's somebody I've got to know and I like, and I can see that that's a method that they're sort of using and it won't be working for them, I might sort of have a one-to-one with them, arrange a coffee and ask them how the networking's going and all the rest of it. And I'm quite happy to share some things that I've found useful, if that helps them, because we all need a helping hand now and then, and some people don't realize the consequences of some of their behaviors, and a lot of the time it's not intended, is it?
Mm-hmm. That's right. But the quality of our presence makes an impact, and so
It does.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think but I think we have to. You sometimes do have to make allowances though for the fact that we are also human. So somebody that's not been great at one meeting, say, we need to allow people, more than one chance, to sort of like to get it right, if you like. You wouldn't endlessly allow that. But you know, I think we have to allow for people being human, don't we? And you know, because that's makes us of the rich, varied people we are anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah. To sum up then, Louise, what would you say, like for you yourself as a creative artist, for you, tell me about presence, emergence and impact to summarize.
To summarise, I think in terms of applying my art, actually sort of creating my art, I think it's very, very much there where I'm completely in the flow, completely in my creative process, completely present in sort of living in that moment. And then in order to get those ideas out and to get those wider things, it's actually then extending my presence out into the wider community, whether that is face to face or whether it is by using social media, and then seeing where I can make connections that benefit myself or others, or the win-win, both parties, and sort of like bringing people together. But one of my passions is to let people know that, you know, everybody can be creative, and you know, we've all got roots to how we can find that, and how much that creativity actually would be, that it's really good for well-being generally. Yeah.
Yeah, and we express you say everyone's creative, and we express our creativity in different ways. Not everyone's going to express their creativity through art. Some people
No,
express their creativity through cookery, others through flower
absolutely.
arrangements, others through gardening, you know.
No, absolutely. It's for people to find that path, to, you know, but to encourage people to actually have it. It's almost like downtime, being creative in some way, getting lost in some process, even if it's only half an hour reading a book that you know, really good book that you've got lost in. I think having that time where you are present in the moment of actually doing one activity without any other interruptions, I think that's really key as to how you will then be in your life sort of generally. It will have a real impact on what you, the rest of what you do that day, really.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Louise, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed my conversation with you, and I look
Oh,
forward
and I've enjoyed
to.
talking to you too, and thank you very much for inviting me to have a chat with you.
Okay, thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.